The moment I discovered the fake heir's secret, that he was tethered to some kind of score-boosting system, he started panicking, terrified I'd deliberately bomb my finals and tank his score along with mine. So, he sent our parents to persuade me not to throw away my own future just to spite him. When they came to me, I asked them a simple question: why should I just hand him 50 extra points on his SATs? My father's expression was grim. Leo needs this to prove himself, to finally get past the adopted son label that's made him so insecure. I just nodded, saying nothing. Fine, I'll give him his 50 points. I'll score a 1580. Let's see how Mr. 1630 explains that one when the official results come out. Ethan, your brother has been mocked his whole life as the charity case of the Reed family. He needs these scores to prove he belongs, to finally escape that shadow of insecurity. You're the top student at Northwood High, and you're the true heir to this family. You need to show some class and help your brother out. When my dad laid that on me, my chest tightened. I stayed silent for a long time. I knew it was Leo, my brother with no shared blood, who had sent them. Ever since I'd stumbled upon his secret, he'd been walking on eggshells, terrified I'd turn in a blank test booklet for my finals and sabotage his scheme. I was ranked #1 in our class. I could ruin him, take a gap year, and still get into any Ivy League school I wanted next year. But Leo couldn't. He was struggling to even be considered for a state college. This was his one and only shot at a clean slate. Son, why would you waste your own time just to punish him? My mother added, her voice soft and her lips curved into a gentle, loving smile. Just do your best. Imagine the stories, both Reed brothers getting into MIT or Harvard. It would be the talk of the town. That smile felt like a slap in the face. My heart soured. They say a mother's love is profound, but hers had taken a seriously wrong turn. Growing up, Leo was always the favored one. Why? Because he was the boy my parents adopted to fulfill my older sister's dying wish. A boy from the foster system she had befriended and wanted to save. After she passed away, all my parents' guilt transformed into doting affection for him. And I, their biological son, became the supporting character in his story. I looked them straight in the eyes. Do you even see me as your son? Why am I expected to just gift him 50 points? A flash of impatience crossed my father's face. Leo's had a tough life. Helping him is a small gesture for you, and he'll repay you for it one day. Don't be so dramatic, my mom chimed in. What will people think of our family if you act out? It seems I was more naive than I thought. I had held onto a sliver of hope that my question might spark an ounce of guilt in them. But there was nothing, only disappointment. Disappointment that I wouldn't fall in line for their precious adopted son. I let out a bitter laugh, my heart constricting painfully. And as for Leo repaying me, that was a joke. He was the type to bite the hand that fed him. In middle school, when he was bullied, I was the one who stood up for him. Instead of thanking me, he spread rumors behind my back, turning my friends against me and painting me as the villain to our teachers and parents. My parents must have sensed my resentment. Their expressions shifted, their eyes darting away before my father sighed deeply. Ethan, we just don't want to see you fail. You're capable of a 1550. There's no need to score a 0 just to make a point. Exactly, my mom added. If you really got a 0, it would be a huge embarrassment for the family. You're about to turn 18. It's time to be mature about this, not emotional. Besides, helping Leo is hardly an effort for you. What's the big deal? Right? What was the big deal? All I had to do was perform as usual. I score a 1550, he gets a 1600, a perfect score, making him a local legend and setting a new record for our school district. He'd become an overnight sensation, the celebrated genius. His future would be limitless. No one would ever question his past again. In fact, it would become a powerful part of his inspirational backstory. Suddenly, I felt exhausted. This whole life was pointless. For years, I had tolerated him for my parents' sake, but he only grew more audacious. My parents always turned a blind eye, telling me to have the magnanimity of a Reed heir. But I'm their child, too. Why am I always the one who has to compromise? And now, they wanted me to be his stepping stone. I couldn't stand to talk to them for another second. I turned and walked away. My father's brow furrowed, his voice sharp. Ethan, did you hear a word I said? Stop being so childish. I didn't break my stride, not in the mood to engage. His voice turned icy. If you don't agree, then this family has no son named Ethan Reed. That stopped me. The pain in my chest was gone, replaced by a strange sense of relief. Liberation, even. I turned my head slightly and nodded. Fine, I'll do it. I'll do everything in my power to help your precious son soar. I added silently. Right into the sun. The truth is, I never planned on throwing my exams. College was one of the most important milestones in my life. I wasn't going to waste my youth over some piece of trash. Not only would I not bomb them, but I was also going to unleash my full potential. I would meticulously solve every problem, fighting for every last point. I was aiming for a 1580. That's right. My true potential was a 1580. In the last few practice SATs, I had intentionally held back, scoring a 1540 and a 1550. I was always managing my score. A 1550, while good enough for the Ivy League, wasn't exceptional enough to make waves. Given my situation, I needed to do something spectacular to break free from my parents' control. A 1580 would not only get me into any program I wanted, but would also set a new record for our state. The highest score in recent years was a 1570. As for Leo, congratulations to him. He was about to score an impossible 1630. The SAT is scored out of 1600. I couldn't wait to see how he'd handle that. The fallout was going to be epic. I was almost giddy with anticipation. The next morning, I was up and out of the house before anyone else. After grabbing breakfast near school, I headed straight to my first period classroom to review my notes. My mind was completely focused on practice questions, complex problem-solving strategies, and meticulously planning how to maximize my score. After a study period, I stepped out for some fresh air, only to be intercepted by Leo. He was holding a takeout box with a cold steak inside, an apologetic look plastered on his face. Hey, Ethan, I'm sorry. I had no idea Mom and Dad were going to be so harsh last night. He watched my face carefully as he placed the box on my desk. I brought you something to eat. They were just upset. Please don't take it to heart. I stared at him, my face a blank mask. No matter how sincere his expression, how tightly he pressed his lips together, I could see the flicker of triumph and delight in his eyes. He was gloating, convinced he'd won. He was banking on the fact that I wouldn't dare cause a scene and expose him in the middle of class. After all, any outburst would probably be dismissed as pre-exam stress-induced paranoia. Thanks. I'll take the steak. I picked up the box, walked over to the trash can, and dropped it in without a second thought. Ignoring Leo's stunned and ugly expression, I walked out of the classroom. Just then, our homeroom teacher, Mr. Davidson, walked in. He immediately noticed Leo's wounded look and my action of throwing away the food. What's going on here? He asked. Leo quickly put on a brave face, waving his hands dismissively. It's nothing, Mr. D. I forgot to heat up the steak I brought for my brother, so he threw it out. It's my fault for being careless. Sorry to cause a scene. Mr. Davidson's brow furrowed as he turned to me with a serious look. Is that true, Ethan? No, I said, my expression calm. I've been having stomach issues. I'm not eating red meat right now. With that, I excused myself to go to the restroom, leaving him to comfort the supposedly wronged Leo. The whole act was so nauseatingly fake. I decided then and there I couldn't stay at home. I'd ask my best friend to cover for me and find a hotel to stay in until after the exams. While Leo probably wouldn't dare interfere with my studying at this critical juncture, I couldn't stand his toxic presence. It was ruining my focus. After school, I went to the mall to pick up some clothes and essentials. As I pulled out my card to pay, my gaze softened for a moment. It was an Amex Centurion card, linked to a trust my grandfather had set up for me, funded by the dividends from a 15% stake in the company. He must have seen this coming years ago and left me a way out. Back at the hotel, I took a long, hot shower, washing away the physical and mental grime of the day. Just as I was settling down to study, my phone buzzed. It was my mom. Looks like my friend cracked under pressure. I didn't bother declining the call. Where are you, Ethan? She asked, her voice tense. At a hotel, I replied coolly, flipping open a textbook. A change of scenery is helping me focus. Who knows? Maybe I'll help my dear brother score a perfect 1600. The line went silent. I knew that had hit a nerve. After a long pause, she finally spoke again. All right. Well, take care of yourself. Call me if you need anything. Should I send over one of the security guys? Not necessary. The hotel is right by the school. That's all. I have to study. I hung up before she could say another word. It might seem cold, But if they chose the fake heir, they had to be prepared to lose their real son. For the next 2 weeks, I lived and breathed practice tests and review materials. Meanwhile, Leo, apparently thrilled that I had been driven out, was on cloud nine. He spent his days loudly discussing post-exam vacation plans with classmates and openly flirting with Sarah, the class valedictorian and resident academic superstar. A few of my friends warned me that my fake brother was getting way too cocky. I didn't care. Right now, nothing mattered more than my score. I was going to get it. Finally, exam day arrived. Under the blazing summer sun, I sat in the testing center, the frantic scribbling on my pencil a testament to the sweat and effort I was pouring into paving my own future. I was so focused that I didn't even notice Leo was in the same room, sitting in the back, watching me for 2 full days. When I walked out of the final exam, he jogged to catch up, a smug grin on his face. "Ethan, you really are a genius. You finished with time to spare and checked your work over and over. Looks like you didn't want to disappoint Mom and Dad after all. You really didn't throw it." The cockiness in his eyes and voice was completely undisguised. I nearly snorted. For that couple who almost sold out their own son, this was for me, and me alone. "Congratulations," I said, the 2 words tight with suppressed laughter. I tried to walk away before I broke down. With my confidence in a 1580, or maybe even a few points higher, that meant Leo was about to score an astronomical 1630. His precious system was about to become a laughingstock in whatever dimension it came from. The thought was just too absurd. So yes, congratulations were in order. "You should congratulate me. I'm looking at 1590 easy," Leo said, keeping pace with me, unable to stop himself from gloating. "A 1590! I'll be the top scorer in the city, the state, maybe even a national merit scholar. I'm going to be a star." I struggled to keep a straight face, my shoulders shaking. He mistook it for anger and pressed his advantage. "Oh, and congratulations on me getting 5% of Reed Corp's shares. Dad signed the papers the night before the exam. Forgot to tell you. He was on a roll now. We decided not to announce it right away, so it wouldn't mess with your performance. But they're making it official tonight. Keep an eye out for the press release." "You are pathologically nauseating." I shook my head, my good mood completely intact. None of what he said mattered. With the support of my grandfather's old allies on the board, Reed Corp would be mine once I graduated college. Dad's blatant favoritism towards his adopted son had already alienated many of the long-standing shareholders. "You're not mad?" Leo asked, a little disappointed that I wasn't reacting. He was the kind of parasite who reveled in taking things from others. My indifference soured his victory. "Why would I be mad? You're just a charity case my parents took in. They might treat you like a treasure, but you'll never be anything more than the boy my sister pitted." I fired back without mercy. I had a tongue, too. Leo's face froze, his expression twisting into a mask of anger and hatred. I'd hit his deepest insecurity. For all these years, it wasn't being the adopted son that he hated most. It was being the living embodiment of a dead girl's pity project. It was a brand of shame he couldn't escape. "You've got a sharp tongue," he snarled, his face dark. "Let's see if you're still this arrogant when the scores come out. You just wait. On score release day, I've got a big surprise for you." I paused, a flicker of curiosity crossing my mind. What other tricks could he possibly have up his sleeve? I scoffed and walked away, eager to put distance between myself and his toxic presence. Let's see who's standing when the scores are revealed. I didn't give Leo's threat a second thought. His downfall was imminent. I was just waiting to watch him crash and burn in front of the entire school. That evening, the Reed Corporation's official website posted a press release. The chairman had transferred 5% of his personal shares to Mr. Leo Vance as a merit-based gift. Leo immediately shared the link on his Instagram story, making sure to tag me. I ignored it, but the heirs and heiresses in my social circle were stunned, blowing up my phone with messages asking what was going on. I gave a few vague replies and went back to planning my future. Late that night, my mom called. It seemed they had just finished celebrating with Leo and finally remembered they had another son. I answered, "Ethan, the exams are over. Why aren't you home yet?" "Home," I thought. "What home?" The 3 of them seemed perfectly happy. Why would I subject myself to that? I was better off on my own, waiting for score release day. "Not coming back," I said flatly. There was a rustle on the other end, and then my father's stern voice came through the line. Ethan Reed, there's a limit to this nonsense. I know you're throwing a tantrum about the shares, but your mother and I just wanted to give him some security. You have the trust your grandfather left you. He continued, his voice rising. Look at you, running away from home over a few trivial matters. If you keep this up, you can forget about inheriting Reed Corp. You won't get another dime from me. Money? Inheriting the company? I had a laugh. They hadn't given me an allowance in over a year. It started when I was a junior, after Leo insulted my grandfather to my face. I punched him, and he ran crying to my parents. As punishment, they cut off my allowance and never reinstated it. If it weren't for my grandfather's trust fund, the so-called young master of the Reed family might have ended up begging on the street. As for inheriting the company, that was an even bigger joke. They were already willing to force me to be a stepping stone for their precious Leo. It wasn't a stretch to imagine them scheming to take away all my shares and hand them over to him. I was done with this family. I had no hope left. Taking a deep breath, I steadied myself and spoke calmly. You've misunderstood. I'm not throwing a tantrum. I just don't want to intrude on your happy little family of 3. I wish you a long and prosperous life together. I was making it clear I wanted to cut ties, my sarcasm laid on thick. In a few hours after midnight, I would be 18. I would no longer be under the legal guardianship of these heartless parents. I was so done with this house. As expected, my father exploded. Fine, you've really grown up, haven't you? Cutting ties with your own father. How did I raise such a selfish, petty son? You're a disgrace to this family. Now you get your ass back here and apologize to me, your mother, and Leo. Otherwise, you're never setting foot in this house again, and I'll find a way to take back those shares. You can try, I retorted instantly. My shares are in a legally protected trust. You have no authority to touch them. Besides, the other board members were my grandfather's oldest friends. Do you really think they'll stand by and watch you gut the company for your pet project? Don't be surprised if they vote to have you removed. And don't forget, I continued, my voice calm and steady. Grandfather's will clearly states that his 45% controlling stake is only held by you in proxy. On my 22nd birthday, it transfers to me, free and clear. You signed the papers. You agreed to it. I laid out the facts. My grandfather had originally intended to give the shares directly to my father, but he saw how biased Dad was towards Leo. He worried that after he was gone, there would be no one to keep my father's foolishness in check. So, he had meticulously set up this arrangement. Sometimes, I really wondered if I was their biological son at all. The other end of the line was silent, but I could hear heavy, ragged breathing. My father was furious. Ethan Reed, I'm giving you one last chance. Come home right now, and I'll pretend this never happened. Otherwise, what? I'd spelled it all out, and he was still living in his own fantasy world. The man was delusional. What else was there to say? I hung up and blocked his number. It was almost midnight. I opened the cake I had bought for myself earlier and started to eat. Ever since my sister died, my birthday was always pushed back 2 weeks so I could celebrate it with Leo. The irony was suffocating. With the exams over and scores not yet released, I took a trip with a few good friends. We did a road trip through the national parks out west, then flew to Europe for a week. I didn't spare a single thought for Leo or my parents, though my friends seemed to follow the drama for me. As score release day approached, my best friend, Mark, sent me a link to an Instagram profile. It was a family influencer account. When I clicked on it, I saw my parents and Leo. They had only posted 3 videos, but had already amassed over 1 million followers. The most popular video had over 5 million views. The theme, parents help son estimate his SAT score. In the video, the 3 of them were the picture of a happy, loving family, gathered around a table with a copy of the exam questions. They laughed and joked as they went through the test, the picture of domestic bliss. The whole thing was perfectly shot and edited, clearly the work of a professional marketing team. Of course, the biggest draw, aside from my parents' prominent social status, was Leo's estimated score, a jaw-dropping 1590. This score, verging on impossible, attracted a massive online following and even got them coverage from local news outlets. When questioned, Leo confidently assured reporters that 1590 was a conservative estimate. He might have even scored a few points higher. He openly invited all media outlets to a live-streamed event at our school on score release day to witness the birth of the state's top scholar. Leo was desperate for his comeback story. With my parents' full backing, he was eagerly building his own hype machine. Once his score was announced, he would be an instant national sensation, a star born overnight. I watched this farce unfold from a distance with a cold smile, just waiting for the day he would come crashing down into the abyss. Finally, score release day arrived. The school had scheduled our graduation photo shoot for the same day, so everyone who could make it was there. The plan was to get our scores, then take the photos. When I got to school, the campus was buzzing with energy. I saw several news vans parked out front and reporters heading inside. They were all here for Leo. He had become the city's most famous college applicant. Who else would they be covering? But Leo was nowhere to be seen, which put me on edge. I had a bad feeling that something was about to happen. Just as I was lost in thought, a commotion erupted outside the classroom. I looked up and saw Leo arrive, looking pale and exhausted. He looked like he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. The moment the reporters saw the formerly vibrant teen, now looking so fragile, they swarmed him. Leo was wearing a loose-fitting t-shirt. As a media scrum closed in, he shifted slightly, revealing several old, faded scars on his arms. The crowd gasped. Reporters started firing questions. What happened? Even my classmates were murmuring in confusion. I'm sorry to take up everyone's time on what should be a happy day, Leo began, his eyes red-rimmed and his voice choked with emotion. My scores are coming out today, and I should be excited. He paused, taking a shaky breath. But I've been under a lot of pressure these last few days. Not because I'm worried about my score, but because I've been having nightmares. About the person who used to bully me. I spent all of middle school being tormented, he continued, his voice cracking. I was verbally abused, beaten, burned with cigarettes, had my face stomped on the ground. Tears began to stream down his face. The entire area fell silent, hanging on his every word. You're probably wondering how the adopted son of the wealthy Reed family could have been bullied. The problem is, the person who did it was my own brother, Ethan Reed. If my adoptive parents hadn't protected me, I don't think I would have survived. When we got to high school, he changed his act. He stopped the abuse and transformed himself into the straight, a student everyone admires. But even now, just seeing him fills me with terror. I just want to run away. This has been a shadow I can't escape, he declared, his voice rising with conviction as he stared directly into the cameras. So today, with everyone watching, I have to expose him. Leo gritted his teeth, his eyes burning with a desperate fire. I want to say this, Ethan Reed. I'm not afraid of you anymore. I'm going to get into a top university, and all the pain you caused me will become the ladder I used to climb higher. I was frozen in place. I was the bully, and my parents, they just let him spew these vicious lies. The classroom erupted. My classmates were staring at me with a mixture of shock and suspicion. The reporters and media crews swiveled their cameras in my direction, their lenses like a firing squad. It hit me in an instant. Leo was trying to destroy me. He was the center of attention, the supposed 1,590 scoring genius. If this story about him being a victim of bullying got out, the public backlash against me would be devastating. In the age of social media, a single, baseless rumor could ruin a person's life. And this was far more than a rumor. I had severely underestimated Leo's capacity for treachery. What chilled me to the bone was that my parents were letting him do this, standing by in silent approval. Was this their revenge for the other night? A way to force me to give up my shares? Before I could even process it, a plastic water bottle flew through the air and struck me on the forehead, leaving an instant welt. I looked up to see it was a student from the class next door. A few of my closer friends, furious, jumped to their feet and formed a protective circle around me. But many more students, swayed by the one-sided story, started throwing whatever they had, crumpled paper, pens. The scene devolved into chaos, and Leo, the instigator, stood off to the side, surrounded by reporters, continuing his tearful performance and fanning the flames. If it weren't for the fact that my friends in my own class knew me well, I probably would have been dealing with more than just thrown objects. Thankfully, the principal and other administrators arrived to restore order, forcing the agitated students back to their classrooms. Once things had calmed down, the principal announced that the scores would be released online in 5 minutes, and the reporters finally settled down. I stared at Leo as he walked back into the classroom, The kid my parents had pulled strings to get into this advanced program. The one who was now using a cheat system and character assassination to get ahead. Utterly shameless. He ignored everyone, slumped into his seat, and buried his head in his arms, looking for all the world like a fragile victim. The performance was so good, it was sickening. He deserved an Oscar. But I knew Leo. He wouldn't stop here. He was probably already planning to call in our parents as reinforcements to deliver the final blow. I couldn't let that happen. As a precaution, I needed backup of my own. I pulled out my phone and sent a quick text to Mr. Sullivan, the second largest shareholder in Reed Corp. He was my grandfather's old army buddy and held immense influence within the company and our family. Just as I sent the message, the moment of truth arrived. It was time to check the scores. In an instant, the drama between me and Leo was forgotten. Everyone scrambled for their phones, fingers flying across screens. I did the same, entering my student ID to pull up my results. As expected, a message popped up. Your score has been withheld for review. That was the notification given to the top 50 scorers in the state. At the same time, shouts of surprise and disappointment filled the room. What? I only got a 1450. I was sure I had at least a 1480. Dude, be grateful. You could still get into a great UC school with that. What did you get? A humble 1540. A 1540 was an elite score in our district. The student, who was clearly showing off, immediately became the center of attention. The reporters, not wanting to miss any part of the story, turned their cameras on him. One blogger even commented that the banter was like something out of a sitcom and that he should buy the kid a celebratory dinner. Amid the noise, Leo suddenly sat up, his previous exhaustion gone, replaced by a radiant glow. He didn't check his own score. Instead, he cleared his throat and pointed a finger directly at me. Everyone, before I check mine, I want to see the score of that bully. I believe in karma. There's no way the universe would let someone like that get into a place like MIT. He was doubling down, determined to frame me as a villain and force me onto a public guillotine. If my score was low, I'd be mocked and condemned. If it was high, people would cry injustice, and online mobs would petition to have my admissions rescinded. It was a truly vicious move. Sorry to disappoint you, I said, my voice ringing with confidence as I looked at the smug expression on his face. My score is being withheld. I can't see it yet. Go ahead, kid. Keep smiling. Once your score is revealed, it'll be your turn to cry. 7. The classroom buzzed with whispers. Withheld? Doesn't that mean he's in the top 50 in the state? Hearing this, Leo's face lit up with pure ecstasy. His whole body trembled with excitement. If my score was that high, it meant his, with the 50-point boost from his system, would be even higher. Wow, Ethan, you're truly amazing, Leo said, his voice dripping with faux sadness. You went from being the feared school tyrant to the admired top scorer. It's really something to be jealous of. I was getting sick of his act. Cut the drama queen routine and check your own score. I interrupted, my patience gone. The room fell silent. All eyes, especially the cameras, turned to Leo. He basked in the attention, a self-satisfied smirk playing on his lips as he theatrically took out his phone and opened the results portal. Everyone craned their necks, trying to get a look. The reporters were practically climbing over each other to get their cameras closer to his screen. After typing in his ID number, Leo paused, his finger hovering over the submit button. He scanned the room, soaking it all in. My score is definitely being withheld too, he announced. I'm sure I'm the state's top scorer. For God's sake, just hit the button, one of the reporters yelled, unable to take the suspense. We'll see if it's withheld. We could just film your screen. A confident smile spread across Leo's face. He finally tapped the screen. The result was chaos. The phone screen began to flicker violently, as if it had been hit with a virus. Everyone stared, dumbfounded. What kind of knockoff phone is that? A student near him muttered. Is it supposed to have a strobe light feature? Leo frowned and tapped his phone, tried to get it to stop. The screen went black, then flashed back to the home screen. He tried again, navigating back to the portal. The screen started flickering again. This time, however, in the split-second flashes, an unbelievable number was visible. 1633. How is that possible? A reporter standing closest to him yelled, completely stunned. A classmate next to him saw it too and practically jumped out of his seat. Holy crap, 1633. That's a new national record. Wait, isn't the max score 1600? The number was only visible for a moment, and most people missed it. But those two outbursts were enough to send a shockwave through the room. The classroom went dead silent. The principal and the media members exchanged looks of utter disbelief. A grin spread across my face. It looked like my real score was 1583. That would not only make me the state champion, but would also set a new record for the highest raw score. At that moment, Leo started to panic. No, you must have seen it wrong. Yes, that's it, he stammered, his mind finally snapping out of his fantasy. If he really scored a 1633, his life was over. Check it again, another reporter urged, his voice filled with a manic excitement. A score of 1633 was impossible, which made it the story of a lifetime. Leo wiped the sweat from his brow and logged in again. The screen continued to flash erratically. I had a funny thought that his score-boosting system was in a digital war with the official College Board database. One was insisting on 1633, while the other was screaming, "Are you insane? The maximum is 1,600. After a few more agonizing seconds, the flickering stopped. The screen stabilized, and everyone stared, jaws on the floor. There it was in bold, undeniable numbers, 1633. No special notes, no asterisks for extra credit. The system had even bypassed the score withheld function. The system, whatever it was, had brute forced the number into existence. The reporters just stared at each other, speechless. My classmates looked around in bewildered silence. Leo was drenched in sweat, frantically tapping his phone and muttering, "This is fake. It has to be a bug. It's a glitch." He looked around wildly, his eyes finally landing on me. A horrifying realization dawned on him, and his face went deathly pale. My score was too high. The root of the problem was me. His eyes widened, his face contorting into a demonic snarl. "Ethan Reed, why did you have to score so high? You little snake. Are you trying to ruin my life?" He had completely lost his mind, oblivious to the suspicious stares he was now getting. No one in the room was stupid. They might not have known the details, but his outburst made it clear that my score was somehow connected to his impossible one. Just as the scene was about to erupt again, the principal rushed in. He pushed through the crowd and ran up to me, beaming. "Ethan, my boy, you have to come with me. The admissions officers from Harvard MIT are here. They're waiting for you in my office." The principal's announcement instantly shifted everyone's attention. A swarm of reporters surrounded him. How much did Ethan Reed score? The principal couldn't stop grinning. "I just heard from the admissions team. He scored a 1583. He's the state champion, no doubt about it." State champion, in a flash, every eye, every camera was on me. The bug in Leo's score was forgotten. My alleged bullying was ancient history. I was the new headline. I was mobbed, microphones and cameras shoved in my face. The tables had turned completely. The area around Leo became a vacuum. He stood there, pale and trembling, frozen in place. As the principal and I fought our way through the crowd, the vice principal came running over. She scanned the room, spotted Leo, and waved him over. "Leo Vance, come with me." Leo's face lit up with a flicker of hope. "Are the admissions officers from Harvard here for me, too?" "No," she said grimly. "This is something serious. You need to come with me now." No one knew exactly what happened next. I was busy meeting with the admissions teams and didn't have time to worry about Leo's fate. By the time I walked out of the principal's office, having accepted a full scholarship to MIT, Mr. Sullivan was waiting for me. He told me to go join my friends for the graduation photos and that he'd explain on the way. In the car, Mr. Sullivan saw my anxious expression and filled me in on what had happened. As expected, Leo was taken away by officials from the College Board's Office of Testing Integrity. But because I had already texted him, Mr. Sullivan had his lawyers download the live stream footage of Leo's slanderous accusations and immediately file a police report for defamation. So now, Leo was at the police station, facing a joint inquiry from the testing authorities and the police. My parents, upon hearing the news, rushed to the station to try and bail out their precious boy. However, Leo, who was all bravado and no substance, quickly cracked under police questioning, and his story fell apart. He was denied bail. My parents were now outside the station, frantically calling everyone they knew to pull some strings. But the situation was not looking good for him. The defamation case was a slam dunk. He had tried to ruin my reputation to secure his inheritance. The issue with the test score, however, was bizarre. When the officials pulled up his actual test, his score was a dismal 950. But the online system showed 1633. The testing board brought in cybersecurity experts to check for hacking or tampering, but they found nothing. What was even stranger to the police and the officials was that whenever Leo tried to explain what had really happened, right as he got to the critical part, he would suddenly be unable to speak, as if he'd gone mute. Hearing this, I had a pretty good idea of what was going on. It had to be a limitation imposed by his system. But how had he explained it to my parents before? Maybe his system was damaged during its fight with the official database. I stopped overthinking it. As long as the truth about his lies came out, I could use the court of public opinion to ensure he'd never recover. He would be permanently nailed to a pillar of shame. When Mr. Sullivan and I arrived at the police station, my parents, pacing anxiously outside, saw me immediately. My mother rushed over, her face a mess of desperation, and grabbed my arm. "Ethan, your brother didn't know what he was doing. Please, just tell the police you'll forgive him. Let him come home, please." At that moment, the last shred of familial affection I had for them evaporated. They clearly still didn't understand the real reason Leo was being held. I had no desire to speak to them ever again. "You two have some nerve," Mr. Sullivan boomed as he got out of the car, his face dark with fury. "Mr. Sullivan." My parents flinched when they saw him. "Don't you call me that," he snapped. "Your own son gets publicly humiliated, and you do nothing. Instead, you're here worrying about an adopted boy with a venomous heart. You've truly shamed your father's memory." He held up a hand to cut off their excuses. "We'll deal with this mess first. Afterward, Daniel," he said, using my father's first name, "you're signing over your remaining shares to Ethan. You are no longer fit to be the chairman of Reed Corp. Don't even think about fighting it. Don't force me to rally the other board members to have you publicly removed." His words hung in the air with the weight of a final judgment. My father deflated like a popped balloon, unable to utter a single word of protest. Mr. Sullivan said no more, leading me into the station with my parents trailing behind us. Inside a viewing room, we watched the monitor. Leo sat alone in an interrogation room, looking completely drained. Apparently, both the testing officials and the police chief had received calls from higher-ups to suspend the questioning. The police would have contacted me eventually, as the victim in a defamation case. I made my position clear. I would not be forgiving him or dropping the charges, but I wanted a chance to speak with him alone. I might be able to get some answers. My parents started to object, but a single glare from Mr. Sullivan silenced them. When I walked into the interrogation room, Leo's eyes, previously dull, lit up. He immediately burst into tears. "Ethan, I'm so sorry. I was wrong. Please, just sign the papers and let me go. I don't want to go to jail." I shook my head without a word. He blinked, sniffled, then leaned back in his chair, a mocking smirk replacing his tears. I was taken aback. The sudden shift was jarring. "Was that all an act?" "Just kidding. You actually fell for that," he sneered. "I knew you'd never forgive me. After all, you're selfish and petty. That's what Mom and Dad always say about you." I narrowed my eyes. He continued, savoring the moment. "It doesn't matter if you forgive me or not. I asked my lawyer. I'm still a minor for another week. The worst I'll get is a slap on the wrist, 10 days in juvenile detention, a $500 fine, and a public apology to you. That's it." I had overlooked that. My face must have shown my anger. Leo was ecstatic. "Oh, does that make you mad?" he taunted. "You're just a pathetic loser, Ethan Reed. Even when you win, who cares? Mom and Dad will always care about me more." Is he just confessing now? I feigned a look of pure rage, hoping he would keep talking. He took the bait, completely unaware that our parents were watching from the next room. "Honestly, I can't stand that stupid couple," he spat. "The father is a joke, always playing the stern patriarch. And the mother is even worse, neglecting her own flesh and blood to shower affection on me. Calling them idiots is a compliment." I slammed my hand on the table, acting furious. "Shut up." That only encouraged him. "And your precious dead sister. What a fool. When your family visited that foster home, all I had to do was say a few nice things and she was blushing, begging your parents to adopt me." "Huh. Too bad she was short-lived. If she'd been around, I could have used her to kick you out of the family years ago. But this works out too. Now that mom and dad have abandoned you, I'm next in line to inherit everything. I don't even have to deal with that annoying sister of yours. That was more than enough. My sister was the one line you did not cross in my family. She was killed at 8 years old by a drunk driver. My anger instantly vanished, replaced by a cold, triumphant smile. I looked at the now confused Leo, stood up, and walked out of the room. "Hey, what are you smiling at?" he called after me. His voice died in his throat as he saw my parents standing in the doorway, their faces ashen and their eyes filled with a chilling fury. I didn't stick around for the fireworks. As Mr. Sullivan and I were about to leave, the police chief and a lead investigator from the testing board approached us. They told us something that made no sense. Leo was being released on bail, effective immediately. I was stunned. So were Mr. Sullivan and my parents. The officials offered no explanation, only that before he could leave, he had to record a video apology to me. As for his test score, the official ruling was that his exam was invalidated. He would receive a score of 0. I couldn't help but let out a snort of laughter. Leo, however, showed no reaction. His expression went from surprise to shock and finally settled into a dull, defeated haze. The constant, dramatic reversals of the day had been too much. His mind had snapped. Everything he had schemed for had turned to dust. In a way, though, he had succeeded. A score of 0 was just as historic as my record-breaking 1583, just on the opposite end of the spectrum. I walked over to him, patted his shoulder, and gave him a look of mock sympathy. Back at the house, the atmosphere was heavy and suffocating. I sat beside Mr. Sullivan, watching my parents glare at a head-bowed, silent Leo. To speed things along, Mr. Sullivan got straight to the point. "Daniel, you're signing this share transfer agreement today. I will not have you and your wife's incompetence ruin Ethan's future any longer." "Mr. Sullivan," my father began, his eyes darting from the papers to me. "I told you not to call me that. You don't deserve to." Mr. Sullivan cut him off. "This ends tonight. If you have any sense of decency left, you will sign this. You two will be left with 5% of the company for your retirement. Otherwise, you'll get nothing. Don't forget, your father's secret codicil states that if Ethan is ever subjected to blatant mistreatment, you forfeit everything." The authority of a man who had seen combat was absolute. It crushed my parents, leaving them speechless. Mr. Sullivan then noticed the venomous, greedy look Leo was shooting in my direction. He snorted, "And you, Leo, wipe that look off your face. This is family business. Did you think you got away with it? Just wait. The entire country will be spitting your name." And from my experience with the government, when they let someone like you walk out so easily, it means they have something much worse in store for you. Enjoy your last few moments of freedom. Everyone in the room looked at Mr. Sullivan, curious, but he said no more. He just motioned for my father to sign. After a moment's hesitation, my father signed the papers. "Ethan, this will all be processed by tomorrow morning," Mr. Sullivan said, taking the agreement. "Pack your things. You'll stay at my place tonight. Tomorrow, I'm buying you a new condo as a graduation present." "Okay," I said quickly, walking him to his car. As his car pulled away, I ignored my parents who were trying to talk to me. I went straight upstairs to pack. I wasn't taking clothes, just the things that mattered, gifts from my grandfather and photos of my sister. Downstairs, I could faintly hear Leo's sobs and my parents' angry voices telling him they were taking back everything they had ever given him. 10 minutes later, I came back down with a single suitcase. My parents stopped talking and turned to me, their expressions pained and regretful, like children who had been caught doing something wrong. I took one last look at them, said nothing, and walked towards the door. There was a pang of sadness, but it was overwhelmed by a profound sense of relief. "Wait, Ethan," my mother called out, rushing to grab my arm. "What happened was my fault. I'm not asking you to forgive me, but please, can you give me a chance to make it up to you?" "Yes, son," my father added, his face etched with guilt. "We know we were wrong. Please give us a chance to fix this." I glanced over at Leo, who was still kneeling on the floor, not daring to move. "No, thank you." My refusal was clean and final. The color drained from my parents' faces. Just as I reached the doorbell rang. I opened it, planning to let the visitors in and slip out past them. But the two men standing on the porch made me freeze. They wore dark suits and had cold, emotionless faces like agents from a movie. A theory began to form in my mind. My parents came up behind me. One of the men held up a badge. "We're here for Leo Vance. Please cooperate." The words were formal, but my eyes were fixed on the insignia on the badge, a cryptic seal I didn't recognize, but whose purpose was suddenly crystal clear. Department of Special Investigations. They had classified the score-changing incident as a paranormal event. Mr. Sullivan, with his worldly experience, had been right on the money. A sense of dark satisfaction washed over me. I cooperated, signed a non-disclosure agreement they presented, and walked out the door. As it closed behind me, I heard my mother's sobbing pleas and apologies, and Leo's terrified screams as he realized he was being taken to a place far worse than jail. My heart was calm. I had told myself long ago that if they chose the fake heir, they had to be prepared to lose their real son. I looked up at the setting sun. The sky was a brilliant orange, and, for the first time in years, I felt light. The shadows were gone. Humming a tune, I walked into the light of my new future, on a path that was finally my own. After the whole ordeal with Leo, I accidentally became an influencer. The dual identity of state champion and accused bully was irresistible clickbait. Thankfully, the truth came out, and the bully label was dropped, but the public's fascination with my story only grew. I had no interest in capitalizing on the fame. I didn't need the money, but my photo was everywhere. People found out I was the heir to the Reed family, and then the press release about me becoming the new chairman went viral. The story sent Reed Corp's stock soaring. To appease my new fans, I started posting occasional life updates on social media, treating it like a personal blog. Meanwhile, all traces of Leo's slanderous accusations were scrubbed from the internet. I knew it wasn't because people had lost interest. It was their work erasing the incident from public record. My parents, however, didn't fare so well. Unable to attack Leo, the online mobs turned their righteous fury on them. The public pressure became so intense that they moved abroad a few weeks later. They sent me occasional, tentative messages checking in. The summer was a blur of activity. After a 2-week vacation with my friends, I spent the rest of the time under the tutelage of Mr. Sullivan and the other board members, learning how to run the company. Now, standing in front of the iconic entrance to MIT, I took a deep breath. This was just the beginning. I was going to lead the company to new heights, to a future brighter than anyone could imagine. For myself, and for the people who truly cared about me. The end.